Hello everyone, in this tutorial we'll take a look how to build a circle avatar like this, and there are a few different ways and tips that you need to know, so I'll cover in this tutorial. Okay, so first we'll create a class. So let's go ahead and create a stateful class. You can of course create a stateless class, it doesn't matter. We'll call it my home page. Okay, and then we need to import a couple of the things like this library, and then we're good. Now instead of returning a container, we want to return a scaffold over here, so that we have better manage on other things. All right, so now let's wrap it around a widget, and name of the widget, we'll call it scaffold, and then we can return import the library, and then instead of child we would use body. Okay, so we are good to go. Okay, so now we have this thing, and at the same time we want to define a child over here. Okay, and the child would be, say, column. Okay, because we want to put a few of these things over here on the top of each other, and child takes children, right? Okay, good. Now let's get back to that, get started to do the actual work. So first we want to draw a circle avatar or an avatar like this, and for this one would be using a widget called CircleAvatar, this one. Okay, and the first thing it takes, well, it does take a radius, but we can try without radius. Okay, now let's see what happens. Now we have this one which is called background color. Okay, now background image. So we'll assign it image, and to assign image we'll use another class which is called asset image, and within it you just supply your image path. So in my case it's profile image, say 8.jpg. so I have this image folder in my project folder over here. As you can see, I have a couple of images. All right, okay, now let me run this thing. Okay, so let me go ahead and run this, and this thing should be gone. Yes, so it's too small and it's right at the top. Okay, so now the first thing we want to do, we want to center it. Okay, well, to center it we can wrap this column widget around another widget which is called center. Okay, now let's see. Okay, now it's centered horizontally, so we want to also center vertically. Okay, to do that we can use another property which is called main axis alignment, and we'll call main axis alignment dot center. Okay, so now it came down. Now it's aligned center vertically and horizontally. But now it's too small, so one of the things we could do, we can increase the radius of this thing. Okay, so we'll say 100, say 110. Okay, now it looks much bigger and better. Okay, so that's the basic thing about CircleAvatar, which takes the radius and an image. All right, so, or you can also say background image. Okay, and the other way you can do it, like create a bit of border around this kind of CircleAvatar. Yes, we're going to do that. Now before we do that, let's create a height over here, say 5 pixels, and we'll provide thickness and say 5 pixels. Okay, now let's go ahead and save it. So there is this border over here. All right, and now to look at better, we can also do a background color over here. Okay, so do colors dot blue. Okay, and once you have a container, you can actually assign color. If you don't have the container, it's difficult to assign colors. All right, okay, so now we have this one. So now what we would just copy paste this section. Okay, and I'll put it here, and instead of this one we'll use a different image. So that's a different image, right? And now we want to create a border around this image. Okay, bit of border. To do that we can actually use CircleAvatar itself. So wrap it around another widget, and this widget is called CircleAvatar itself. Okay, the same one. Now why we are doing it, because CircleAvatar would always create a circle. Okay, you can understand it like that. Now we'll assign it a radius. Okay, now we'll assign a little bit extra radius, the one inside this CircleAvatar. So it is extra 10 radius, I would say, total. Okay, now of course you run it, you'll see things like this. So it gets a default color and border like this. Of course it's getting border because our radius is bigger than the inner radius. So if you have two CircleAvatar and outer radius is bigger than inner radius, then definitely you can create this kind of effect. Okay, of course you can change the color, so you can use background color to change the color. So we will change the color to gray. All right, now we see we have a gray background. Okay, so this is another cool way to create a background and border with different color, and you can still use just CircleAvatar. You don't need to use any other widget. Okay, so that's one way to go. All right, so the next thing we could do also, that it takes say you want to use network image. Okay, so to do network image, you can still use CircleAvatar and just would change a little bit over here. Okay, all right, so now this is our another what is it, this divider. Now let's go ahead and copy this thing. Okay, and run it. But now instead of this one over here, we want to use network image. Okay, to use network image, you just change asset image. Okay, and you will call it network image, and over here you should copy paste an image URL. In my case, I'll use this one. Okay, it's a random image from this website. Okay, so let's go ahead and save it. Okay, now so this is the default image that I think it has created. Okay, so that's how you use CircleAvatar. So CircleAvatar you can use with asset image and network image like this. Okay, so hopefully you learned something, and if you learned something, don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. So I will see you in another tutorial. Well, now we'll take a look if you have a lot of images like this, and if the images are stored in JSON file, or if it's a network request. After decoding it, of course, it's also JSON string. So how to use the JSON string and load them in CircleAvatar. Okay, so that's what we want to see now. And to do that, first because this is a stateful widget, remember, so what we could do, we can override some of the methods. So we'd call void init state. Okay, yes, so now within it we need to call super.init state. And we are doing this because we want to load the JSON file over here. Okay, and we will create a method which is called read data. Now we'll define the method over here, read data, and within this method we'll load our JSON file. To load a JSON file, we can use a function which is called default asset bundle, this one, and it takes a context, and within the context we can also call another method which is called load string, and it takes the path. So our path is JSON, the folder's name is JSON, and just file name is profile.json. Okay, and then once we find it, then we load it. Okay, to load it we use then dot your variable name, whatever the variable you want to use. So that's okay. All right, do remember our JSON file is over here within JSON folder. So this is the file. Okay, yeah, simple JSON file, and this image path has to do with this one over here, img folder. Of course, if you have JSON, then you need to also mention it in your assets setup over here in this file. Okay, all right, now let's go ahead and decode it. Okay, and now you want to decode it within set state function, because once the decode has been done, you want to notify that something happened. So that's why we want it within set state. Okay, now first we'll declare a variable of list type and empty variable called profiles. So after decoding, we'll put everything in this variable, which is list type. Okay, so we'll here use profiles equal json.decode, and what do you want to decode? You want to decode s. So now let's import it. Okay, All right, so this is the S, which has all these JSON values and strings. I mean, whatever we get from here, and then they decode it, and after decoding we put it in profiles. The profile should have our JSON object or JSON string. Okay, all right, now you want to access them over here. Okay, now as you see, what we did, we already have. So now what we could do, we could remove this column section, which we don't need anymore, and we'll directly use everything from our variable, which is called profiles. Okay, all right, so now we'll do list view dot builder. Okay, and it takes a context and then a variable which we'll call I. Okay, all right, and then within it we'll return CircleAvatar. Okay, we are good to go. Of course, there's another setup that we need to do. That's called the item count. That means how many items you have from the JSON files. So we'll call profiles.length. Okay, so this should have as many items in it, like in our case, I guess 4 items. All right, okay, now of course we are returning, so we need semicolon, and we're good to go. Now here we can use background image, and which is our asset image. And how do you access the asset image? From profiles. Okay, so we'll do profiles I, which is this one. This is the index number, and within it we can access the image. So what is the image? This is the image key. All right, and it'll take out the related image and path. All right, and then let's what we could do, we could run it now. So let's run it, and now they're too small. After running it, we find they're too small. So what we could do, we could set up the radius, say 200. Okay, and now we see all these images that we have, and they're also scrollable. So that's how you show your a list of images in CircleAvatar using Listview builder, and it also works with at the same time JSON data. Okay, so hopefully you learned something, and if you learned something, don't forget to smash that like button.